Lauren had always been the responsible one. In her friendships, at work, in her family, she was the one people leaned on. Calm, thoughtful, someone who could carry things without making a sound. Her husband, Ethan, often said she was the quiet strength in their marriage. They had been married for 10 years. Life wasn't perfect, but it was steady, comfortable. But lately, something had shifted. It wasn't a fight or a mistake. Nothing dramatic, just a feeling, subtle but persistent, like a draft in a closed room. Lauren noticed the quiet between her and Ethan had grown longer. He still kissed her on the cheek every morning, still texted her during the day. But they hadn't talked about anything real in weeks. Maybe months? The routine had become louder than the connection. Then Grace came back. Grace was Lauren's younger sister, 5 years younger, more emotional, more impulsive. She'd been living in Los Angeles with a boyfriend for years, until one day, without warning, he ended it. No real explanation. No closure. Grace came home to Portland with a suitcase and red eyes, asking for a place to stay while she figured things out. Lauren didn't hesitate. She opened the guest room, made the bed with fresh sheets, and told Grace she could stay as long as she needed. Ethan was gentle when he saw Grace. He always had a soft spot for her, like the older brother she never had. He gave her space, but also made sure she ate, asked if she needed anything, and didn't tiptoe around her sadness. That first week, Grace barely left the house. She stayed wrapped in a blanket on the couch, watching old shows, barely eating. One night, Lauren walked into the living room and saw Ethan sitting beside Grace. He was just talking. Nothing strange. But Grace was laughing. Actually laughing. It was the first time since she'd arrived. Lauren stood there for a moment, unnoticed, and felt two things at once. Relief that Grace had smiled again, something else. Something she didn't want to name. In the following days, Grace began to come back to life. Not fully, but slowly. She helped with dishes, joined Lauren on walks, asked Ethan about his work. Lauren watched them grow comfortable together. She knew Ethan was just being kind. He wasn't flirting. He wasn't crossing any line. But Grace looked at him differently now. Like she saw something in him Lauren hadn't seen in a long time. And maybe that's what scared her. One evening, as Lauren folded laundry, she looked up and said something she hadn't planned to. "She leans on you," said. Ethan paused. "Grace." Lauren nodded. "She needs someone," he said carefully. "I know," Lauren replied. "And you've been good to her." Ethan sat down beside her. "Are you okay with it?" Lauren hesitated. "I think I am. But I keep wondering if I should feel something else. Jealousy, maybe. Or a protectiveness." "You're allowed to feel both," he said. "But it's not like that." "I know," she said again. "But I think maybe she needs to feel closeness. Something real. Even if it's small." Ethan looked confused. "What are you saying?" Lauren met his eyes. "I'm saying I trust you. I know your heart. And I trust her too. I don't know. I think she needs to be seen. And you're the only one she'll let see her right now." The words felt strange in her mouth. Not because they weren't true, because she'd never imagined saying them out loud. Ethan was quiet. He didn't agree or disagree. He just sat with the thought. Lauren didn't explain it further. She didn't want to turn it into something messy. She only knew that this moment, as strange as it was, mattered. A few days later, Lauren came home early from work. She walked into the house and heard soft voices on the back porch. She didn't make a sound, just stepped lightly down the hallway, through the screen door. She saw Ethan and Grace sitting on the porch swing. Grace had her knees pulled up to her chest, a blanket over her legs. Ethan sat beside her, not touching, but close enough that she could lean into him if she wanted to. They weren't laughing this time. Grace was crying. "I just don't know what I did wrong," she whispered. "I gave him everything." "You didn't do anything wrong," Ethan said gently. "Sometimes people leave because of their own fears, not because of our failures." Grace wiped her eyes, and for a moment she rested her head against Ethan's shoulder. He didn't pull away. Lauren didn't move. She watched from the hallway, her chest tight. It didn't feel like betrayal. It felt like watching something sacred, like watching pain soften in the presence of kindness. She wasn't angry. She wasn't shocked. She just stood there, feeling everything all at once. Later that night, Lauren sat next to Ethan in bed. She didn't ask about the porch. He didn't bring it up either. Instead, they talked about work and bills and the weather. But something in the silence between their sentences had changed. It wasn't empty anymore. The next morning, Grace made coffee for everyone. She looked tired but peaceful. "I'm thinking about visiting Mom next week," she said. "Just for a few days." Lauren smiled. "She'd love that." Ethan nodded. "You should go. Get a change of scenery." Grace looked at both of them as if searching their faces for something unspoken. But no one said anything more. The moment passed. Over the next few days, things settled into a new rhythm. Grace smiled more. Lauren felt less on edge. Ethan stayed steady. The three of them moved carefully around each other, but it wasn't out of fear. It was respect. Understanding. One night, as Ethan was closing up the house, Lauren said, "Thank you." "For what?" he asked. "For being who you are. And for not turning this into something ugly." Ethan stepped closer. "Are we okay?" Lauren nodded. "I think we're learning something new about love." He wrapped his arms around her. They stood there, quiet, still connected. Lauren didn't have all the answers. She didn't know what would happen next. But she knew this. Love wasn't always a straight line. Sometimes it curved. Sometimes it paused. And sometimes it meant letting go of control, not out of weakness, but out of trust. She had trusted Ethan, and she had trusted Grace. And in doing so, she had stayed true to herself. She had watched something unfold that might have broken other people, but for her, it opened something deeper, something more honest. She wasn't afraid anymore. After Grace's visit to their mother's house, the house felt quieter in a way Lauren hadn't expected. Grace was away for a few days, and while Lauren thought she might feel relief, she found herself missing the energy Grace had brought Evan, if it made her uneasy at times. The space felt different, as if holding its breath. Ethan and Lauren moved back into their routine. But Lauren could see the change in Ethan's eyes. It wasn't just the stress of work or the usual fatigue. There was something else, something softer, more reflective. When he spoke, he seemed more thoughtful and at times more distant. One evening after dinner, Ethan sat beside Lauren on the couch, his fingers nervously playing with the edge of his shirt. She waited for him to say something important, but wasn't sure what. "I've been thinking about Grace," he finally said. Voice low. Lauren nodded, bracing herself. "She's still fragile," Ethan continued. "She needs support. More than I thought." Lauren looked down at her hands. "I know." Ethan sighed. "And I think I'm starting to see things differently about us, about what we need." Lauren's heart skipped. Was he talking about their marriage or Grace? "I don't mean this in a bad way," Ethan said quickly, noticing her expression. "It's just, Grace and I, we connect in a way that's different from before. She's opened up to me, and I feel like I'm seeing parts of her I never knew." Lauren felt a mix of emotions swirl inside her. Pride for her sister's healing. Jealousy, but quiet. And something deeper, curiosity. "I want to be honest with you," Ethan said. "I don't want to hide how close we've become." Lauren reached out and took his hand. "Thank you for telling me." Ethan looked into her eyes. "Do you think we're okay? That we can navigate this?" Lauren wanted to say yes. She wanted to believe their bond was strong enough. "I hope so." That night, Lauren lay awake, thinking about all the times she had felt lonely herself, even with Ethan beside her. How sometimes the silence between them spoke louder than words. And now, with Grace, something new was unfolding. It was complicated. It was fragile. But it was real. The days that followed were filled with small moments that built up in Lauren's mind. Grace calling Ethan just to share a joke. Ethan leaving work early to help Grace with her car. Lauren watching them share glances she didn't fully understand. Lauren reminded herself to trust in Ethan, trust in Grace, and trust in herself. One afternoon, Lauren went out for a walk to clear her mind. The cool air filled her lungs, but her thoughts kept drifting back to home. She wondered if what was happening could change everything or if it was simply a passage, a storm to weather. When she returned, she found Ethan and Grace in the living room. Sitting close on the couch, their conversation quiet but intense. Grace looked more relaxed than Lauren had seen in weeks. Ethan smiled softly at her. Lauren smiled too, but inside, a question lingered: how far would this closeness go? Later, Ethan and Lauren talked again. This time more openly. "I don't want to lose what we have," Ethan said, his voice steady but serious. "But I also don't want to hold Grace back from healing." Lauren sighed, feeling the weight of their situation. "Maybe healing means change." Maybe," Ethan said. "And maybe love isn't just about holding on. Sometimes it's about letting go." Lauren thought about those words deeply. They felt true and strange all at once. One evening, Lauren found herself alone with Grace in the kitchen. Grace was making coffee, and for the first time, they talked without the shadow of sadness. "I'm scared," Grace admitted softly. "Scared I'll never be the same." Lauren reached out and touched her arm. "You will be. You're stronger than you think." Grace looked up, hope flickering in her eyes. "Thank you, Lauren, for everything." Lauren smiled. "We're family. We stick together." That night, Lauren lay awake again, this time with a calmness she hadn't felt in a while. She realized she wasn't just watching what was happening. She was part of it. She was learning that love could be messy and beautiful at the same time. The next day, Ethan came home early. He found Lauren on the porch, staring at the sunset. He sat beside her, taking her hand. "We're walking a new path," he said softly. Lauren nodded, squeezing his hand. "Together." As the sun dipped below the horizon, Lauren felt a quiet hope blooming inside her. Maybe love wasn't about perfection. Maybe it was about courage. The courage to face the unknown. To trust, to forgive, and to open her heart even when it was hard. She didn't know what the future held. But for now, she was ready to keep walking hand in hand with Ethan and Grace. Wherever the road might lead, the days following Ethan's confession were a whirlwind of emotions for Lauren. She wanted to believe that everything between her, Ethan, and Grace could remain untouched by jealousy or pain. But deep inside, she felt the fragile thread of their delicate balance starting to pull. Ethan's attention toward Grace was no longer subtle. He checked in with her more often, sometimes sending quick texts during the day or calling just to hear her voice. Lauren noticed the way Grace's face brightened when Ethan was near, and it made her heart ache not from anger, but from the unfamiliar feeling of displacement. One evening, Lauren returned home earlier than usual. The house was unusually quiet. When she entered the living room, she found Ethan and Grace sitting close on the couch. Their conversation light, but filled with unspoken meaning. Grace rested her head briefly on Ethan's shoulder. For a moment, Lauren felt like an intruder in her own home. She stood by the doorway, not sure if she should announce her arrival or retreat silently. Ethan caught her eye and smiled, but Lauren couldn't shake the hollow feeling in her chest. That night, sleep escaped her. She tossed and turned, caught in the web of her own thoughts. The next day, Lauren confronted her feelings honestly. Sitting across from Ethan at breakfast, she said, "I'm struggling with this. I want to support Grace, but sometimes it feels like I'm losing you." Ethan reached for her hand. "You're not losing me. I love you, Lauren. That won't change." Lauren wanted to believe him, but reality had its own way of complicating things. Grace had been making progress. Her laughter was more frequent, her smiles less forced. She even began volunteering at a local community center, something Lauren admired. Yet the closeness between Grace and Ethan deepened with every passing day. One afternoon, Lauren was alone with Grace in the kitchen, watching her sister carefully chop vegetables for dinner. Grace looked up, her eyes soft but serious. "Lauren, can I ask you something?" She said. "Of course," Lauren replied. "Do you think Ethan and I are too close?" Lauren hesitated, searching for the right words. "I don't know," she admitted. Sometimes it feels like you're the one holding him together, Grace sighed. I never meant for things to get complicated. Lauren smiled sadly. None of us did. The tension in the house grew like a quiet storm. Lauren found herself watching Ethan and Grace more than before, not out of suspicion, but out of a desperate need to understand. One evening, she overheard their voices while passing by the living room. Ethan was comforting Grace after she received disappointing news about a job application. I'm here, Ethan said softly. Whatever happens, you're not alone. Grace's voice broke. Thank you. That means more than you know. Lauren felt tears sting her eyes. She wanted to cry and scream at the same time. Later, Ethan came to bed and found Lauren awake, staring at the ceiling. She reached out and pulled him close. I'm scared, she whispered. I don't want to lose what we have. Ethan kissed her forehead. You won't. We're stronger than this. Despite his words, Lauren knew their marriage was being tested. The definition of love was shifting under their feet. One day, Lauren invited Grace for a walk in the park. The autumn leaves crunched beneath their feet, and the air was crisp with the coming cold. Grace, Lauren began, I need to be honest with you. I'm afraid. Grace looked surprised. Afraid of what? Afraid that this closeness between you and Ethan could break us. Grace sighed, looking down at the fallen leaves. I never wanted to hurt anyone. I know, Lauren said gently, but we need to figure out where to draw the line. Grace nodded, tears brimming. I want us to be a family again. Lauren reached out and held her sister's hand. Me too. Back at home, things shifted again. Ethan seemed to sense the tension and tried to create space, pulling back slightly from Grace, focusing more on Lauren. But Lauren saw the flicker of sadness in Grace's eyes, and it pained her. One night, Lauren and Ethan sat quietly after dinner, sipping tea. The weight of unsaid words filled the room. Do you still want to fight for us? Lauren asked. Ethan met her gaze, steady and sure. Every day. Lauren felt hope rise. Maybe love wasn't about perfection, it was about commitment days later. Grace announced she had found a job in a nearby town and would be moving out soon. Lauren felt a bittersweet relief. The night before Grace left, the three of them sat together in the living room. It was quiet, but the silence spoke volumes. Grace looked at Lauren. Thank you for everything. Lauren smiled warmly. You're my sister. I love you, Ethan added, and we're always here for you. As Grace packed her bags the next morning, Lauren watched her leave with a mix of emotions, hope, sadness, and a new understanding of love's complexities. That night, Lauren and Ethan held each other close. They knew their journey wasn't over, but they were ready to face it together. Love had changed, yes, but it had not ended.